infantry spotted.
Enemy troop.
Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
Enemy troops on the ground.
Enemy sniper spotted.
Bang, enemy activity. I owe you one. Enemy activity on the ground.
سقط أحد الرجال.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
Medic. Medic. Medic.
Enemy infantry spotted. Supplies at your position.
UAV
A
online.
bingo on ammo. Do you copy? Hostiles on the ground.
Throwing frag.
Running dry. A bingo on ammo. Do you copy? A bingo on dry. Do you copy? Ammo. Over. Enemy units on the ground. Hostile infantry spotted. Over.
Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
Enemy troops on the ground.
UAV is bingo on fuel. Transmission ending.
Enemy activity.
Enemy infantry spotted.
Hostile forces. Enemy forces.
We've lost control of an outpost.
Enemy units on the move. Medic. Enemy units
Cleared
on
and
the
under
move.
control.
Enemy activity. Do you copy? Medic. Need ammo. Over. Sorry, Chief. You got it.
Online and transmitting.
Attack this position. Medic.
Enemy infantry spotted.
Frag grenade.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Recharge.
Enemy activity. Do you copy?
UAV offline.
Follow me, soldiers.
This support is currently not.
Enemy activity. Enemy activity. Do you copy? Enemy troop. Sniper. Hostile forces spotted. Over. Enemy forces. Over. Hostile forces spotted. Over. Enemy forces. Over.
You're good to go.
Attack camp.
Welcome to duty, Commander.
Clear.
Sniper.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Medic.
Outpost is being overrun.
Hostiles on the...
I read you.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Hostiles on the ground.
Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy spotted. Spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
Roger on the supply drop. Over.
Position cleared and under control.
Enemy activity. Do you copy? Enemy units on the move. Sorry, Chief.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Sorry! Enemy units on the move. Enemy activity. Do you copy?
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Enemy troops.
Go! 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 Go!
No way, man. Enemy on the move.
UAV offline.
You got it. Requesting unmanned aerial. Do you copy? Medic. 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 Medic.
Enemy sniper. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry
aerial. Do you
spotted.
copy?
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Go! Go! Go!
Enemy activity. Do you copy?
How about some help over here? Enemy forces spotted.
Medic. Enemy units on the move.
UAV online and transmitting.
Hostiles on the ground. Enemy unit on the move. Sniper. Medic. Enemy activity. Do you copy? Enemy units on the move.
Thanks, much appreciated.
Enemy units on the move. Medic.
UAV transmitting on this mark. Roger on the supply drop. Over.
Enemy troops.
Frag grenade.
Enemy units.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
Hostile forces. Hostile
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy sniper. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces. Enemy
Medic.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Sorry, Chief.
Enemy
No way,
forces
man.
spotted.
Sorry, Chief. Medic.
forces spotted.
Sniper!
You're the finest squad I ever set eyes on. Enemy infantry, enemy infantry, infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. We've lost control of an outpost. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Sniper spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
All clear. Position under control. Out.
Running dry. Need ammo. I'm bingo on ammo. Do you copy? Enemy units on the move. Back to enemy unit.
Go, squad,
Do you
go.
copy?
Defend this
Enemy
coordinate.
activity. Do you copy?
Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Hostiles on the ground. Enemy activity. Do you copy?
Roger on the supply drop.
Enemy activity. Do you copy? Enemy units on the move. Enemy units on the move. Enemy units on the move.
UAV is bingo on fuel. Transmission ending.
Enemy units on the move. Enemy troops.
Enemy infantry
Hostiles on
spotted.
the ground.
UAV online and transmitting.
Medic. Medic to this pushing a medic. Running dry. Over. Need ammo. Over.
All clear. Position under control. Out.
Medic. Enemy units on the move. On the ground. Medic. Hostile forces spotted.
UAV negative. No on. There are no transmissions on the supply drop.
Snipers on the perimeter spotted. Over. Hostile forces spotted. Over. Some help over here. Requesting UAV overflight. Over.
UAV online and transmitting.
We need support. Do you copy? We need reinforcements. Reinforcements. Over. Enemy troops. Enemy units on the move. Enemy forces. Enemy forces. Over. Do you copy? Enemy activity. Do you copy?
Enemy forces. Enemy forces. Enemy forces. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Attack this coordinate.
Negative.
Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Infantry spotted. Enemy infantry. Enemy infantry spotted. Good work,
We need
squad. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV transmitting
Enemy
on
activity.
this
Do you
mark.
copy?
Position cleared and under control. Enemy forces. Enemy forces spotted. Infantry. Enemy sniper. Sniper.
Enemy forces over.
Go, squad, go! Enemy infantry spotted! Enemy forces spotted! Enemy forces spotted!
Enemy activity. Do you copy?
All clear. Position under control. Out.
Enemy units on the move. Hostile forces spotted. Over.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Hit this position. Do you
No
copy?
can do. Enemy forces over.
Enemy forces spotted.
Do you copy?
Enemy forces spotted. Hit this position. Do you copy? Enemy, infantry, enemy, infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy spotted. Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Enemy troop! Good deal, thanks.
Enemy forces spotted.
Enemy helicopter spotted. Requesting ammunition, over.
Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV
Hostile
online.
forces spotted, over. Hostile forces spotted.
Take demolitions to this position.
Enemy troop! Thanks. Good deal, thanks. Hostiles on the ground. Enemy forces, over. Move it!
Enemy forces spotted.
Perimeter.
Position cleared and under control.
Enemy units on the move. Over. Enemy
All
units
clear.
on the move.
Position under control. Out.
Enemy activity. Do you copy? Hostile forces. Over. Enemy units on the move.
UAV online and transmitting. Roger on the supply drop. Over.
We've lost enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Position cleared and under control.
Hostiles on the ground. Enemy
Enemy
troops.
forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
UAV
Hostile enemy troops identified.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
Enemy hostile infantry spotted. Over. Hostile infantry spotted. Over. Enemy troops identified. Do you copy? Enemy units on the move. Enemy activity. Do you copy?
Enemy sniper. Enemy forces spotted.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
All clear. Position under control. Out.
Roger on the supply drop. Over.
Sniper! Sniper!
UAV
Enemy forces spotted. Over. Hostiles on the ground. Hey, thanks.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
Enemy troops identified. Do you copy?
Roger on the supply drop. Over. UAV transmitting on this
Enemy
mark.
infantry spotted. Move your men to these coordinates. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy
troops identified. Do you copy?
Hold this map coordinate, over. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
Here.
Hostile forces spotted. Over.
Transmitting on this mark.
I'm bingo on ammo. Do you copy? Damn it, sorry. You got it.
Roger on the supply drop. Over.
Thanks, champ. Hostile forces, over. Enemy forces, over. Enemy troops identified. Do you copy?
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy sniper spotted.
UAV online and transmitting.
Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy sniper spotted.
Sniper! Enemy troops identified. Do you copy?
Hold this map coordinate, over.
Negative.
Enemy spotted.
UAV online and transmitting.
Hey, thanks. Hostile infantry spotted. Over. Enemy units on the move. Hostile forces.
Enemy spotted.
Enemy activity. Do you copy?
Transmitting on this mark.
Enemy troops. Medic to this position. Over. Enemy troops identified. Over. Enemy forces. Over. Enemy activity. Do you enemy troops? Hostile forces. Over. Hostile sniper spotted. Over.
Ammo. Here. Ammo.
UAV online and transmitting.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
Good deal. Thanks.
Roger on the supply drop. Over.
Enemy troops identified. Enemy troops identified. Do you copy? Spotted. Over. Enemy units on the move. Hostile infantry spotted. Over.
Get ammo. Here.
Hostile infantry spotted. Over. Enemy units on the move.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy sniper spotted.
Enemy forces. Over.
Spotted. Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV transmitting.
Enemy infantry spotted. Attack this coordinate. Hit this position. Do you copy? Set demolitions at these coordinates.
Thanks. Much appreciated.
Enemy sniper. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
Roger on the supply drop. Over. UAV online and transmitting.
Frag grenade. Grenade. Frag grenade.
We need ammo.
Get ammo. Here. Get ammo. Here.
Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Position cleared and under control. Hold this map coordinate. Over. Enemy forces. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
Damn it, sorry. Sorry, man.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
Hey, thanks. Enemy forces, over. Sorry, man. I need a medic, quick. Do you copy? Enemy troops! Damn it, sorry. Hostiles on the ground. Thanks. I owe you one.
We've lost control of an outpost.
Enemy troops, enemy sniper,
spotted. Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy force, enemy sniper, enemy sniper spotted. Enemy infantry, enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry.
Hostiles on the ground.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
Over.
Roger on the supply drop. Over.
Enemy forces spotted. 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 Enemy infantry. Enemy infantry. Enemy infantry. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry. Enemy forces spotted.
Enemy troops identified.
Do you copy?
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Hostile infantry spotted. Over.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
Enemy forces spotted. Over.
Enemy forces spotted.
UAV is bingo on fuel. Transmission
Enemy forces spotted. Over.
Let's
Roger
move.
on the supply drop. Over. UAV online and transmitting.
Enemy engines. Do you copy? Hostile sniper
Hit
spotted.
this
Over.
position. Do you copy? Defend this coordinate.
Enemy units on the move.
Enemy forces spotted.
Do you copy?
All clear. Position under control. Out. Enemy forces spotted.
Supply drop. Over.
UAV online and transmitting.
Thanks. I owe you one.
Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces
Supply drop. Over. This coordinate.
Supply
Enemy
drop is
troops
negative
identified.
on the
You
supply
copy?
drop. Enemy infantry spotted.
Sorry, man.
Roger on the supply
Enemy
drop.
forces. Over.
Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
Medic.
Defend this coordinate.
Hostile infantry spotted. Over.
UAV online and transmitting.
Enemy forces
Enemy
spotted.
troops identified. Do you copy?
Enemy infantry spotted.
Hostile forces spotted.
Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Casualties over. Enemy infantry spotted. 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 Enemy sniper spotted.
These enemy troops.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Enemy hostile forces spotted. Over. Hostile forces spotted. Over. Enemy activity. Do you copy?
Enemy forces spotted.
Enemy forces. Over.
Hold this map coordinate. Over.
Negative.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV online and transmitting.
Sorry, man. Troops identified.
Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
Roger on the supply drop. Over.
Enemy forces spotted. Move your men to the
Enemy forces spotted. Over. No can do.
Enemy infantry
forces
spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV online and transmitting.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy sniper spotted.
We need ammo. Hostile forces spotted. Over. Roger that. Requesting UAV overflight. Over. I'm medic. Enemy troops identified. Do you copy?
Medic!
Enemy troops.
We're running low on reinforcements.
UAV online and transmitting.
Enemy
Sorry,
units
my bad.
on the move.
Requesting a pickup.
Hostile forces reported. Over. Hostile forces spotted. Over. Medic to this position. Over.
Enemy sniper spotted.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Go!
Medic to this position. Over. Good deal. Thanks.
Go!
Hostile forces. Enemy unit. Over. Move. Enemy activity.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
Hostile infantry spotted. Over.
Well done. Thanks.
UAV online and transmitting. Roger on the supply drop. Over.
Are you going AWOL, soldier? Do not leave the field of battle. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV offline.
أحضر الإسعافات الأولية إلى هنا.
Enemy troops.
UAV
Hostile infantry spotted. Over.
Go!
Hostile infantry spotted. Over. Hostile forces spotted. Over. Hostile forces spotted. Over. Enemy hostile infantry spotted. Over.
Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. الأعداء على الأرض. وصل القائد الجديد إلى الخدمة.
الطائرة بدون
شوهدت قوات الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. شوهد قرار جنود الأعداء.
جاري البث الحي من الطائرة بدون طيار.
ظهر جنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. حرك دعني. شوهد قوات الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء.
الطائرة بدون
ظهر
طيار.
جنود الأعداء. فقدنا السيطرة على إحدى النقاط. شوهدت قوات جنود الأعداء. شوهدت قوات جنود الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. قناصة من جنود الأعداء.
الطائرة بدون طيار.
ظهر جميع الجنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. قوات الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. ظهر 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 جنود الأعداء.
جاري البث الحي.
شوهدت قوات الأعداء. شوهدت قوات جنود الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. شوهد قهر جنود الأعداء من الأعداء. شوهدت قوات الأعداء.
اطلب الذخيرة. حول.
جاري البث الحي.
شوهدت قوات جنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. شوهد قناص من الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. تم الاستيلاء على إحدى النقاط.
جاري البث الحي من الطائرة بدون طيار.
تحركات للأعداء، هل تسمعوني؟
نفض وقود الطائرة بدون طيار. انتهى البث.
وحدات الأعداء
الطائرة
تتحرك.
بدون طيار.
ظهر جنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. قناص من الأعداء. تم
الطائرة بدون طيار تعمل وبدأت البث.
اهجم على هذا الموقع. شوهدت قوات الأعداء. شكرا لك.
توقف العمل.
ظهرت جنود الأعداء. التجهيزات صارت في موقعك. جنود الأعداء على الأرض. فقدنا السيطرة على إحدى النقاط. أين المسعد؟
الإسعافات الأولية إلى هنا. أحضر الإسعافات الأولية.
تم إصلاح منصة إطلاق الطائرة بدون طيار. جاري البث الحي من الطائرة بدون طيار.
تم مسح جميع المناطق. تحرك بسرعة. الموقع. ظهرت جنود الأعداء. تحرك. شوهدت قوات الأعداء. ظهرت جنود الأعداء. ظهرت جنود الأعداء. شوهدت قوات الأعداء. شوهدت ظهرت جنود الأعداء.
تم إصلاح جهاز تعقب الأقمار الاصطناعية. أول
Grenade!
فقدنا السيطرة على إحدى النقاط.
الطائرة بدون طيار تعمل وبدأت البث.
قنبلة.
ننقل إلى التعاملات. أحسن. شكرا. ظهر جنود الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء.
تم تدمير منصة الطائرات بدون طيار. توقف دعم جهاز الأقمار الاصطناعية.
ظهر جنود الأعداء.
جاري البث الحي من
قنبلة.
تم الاستيلاء على إحدى النقاط. شكرا. أدين لك بواحدة. شوهد قوات الأعداء.
جاري البث الحي من الطائرة بدون طيار.
جنود الأعداء. أدين لك بواحدة.
الطائرة بدون طيار تعمل وبدأت البث.
أين المسعد؟
فليبتعد
طائرة بدون طيار تعمل بدأت
فقدنا السيطرة على أحد النقاط. طيار ما تزال في الجو. حول. تمكنا من السيطرة على الأعداء. تابعوا بجهد أكبر أيها الجنود. sniper spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry sniper spotted.
UAV online and transmitting.
Enemy infantry sniper spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
Kumbula.
Position cleared and under
Enemy troops identified. You spotted. Over.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV offline.
Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV online.
Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV transmitting.
Enemy infantry spotted. 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 Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry 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 spotted.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
Enemy troops.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. We've lost control of an outpost.
Clear. Hold on, recharging.
UAV online and transmitting.
Medic! Clear. You'll live. Back to the fight.
Enemy infantry spotted.
Enemy boat spotted. Enemy boat spotted. I'm bingo on enemy boat. Do you copy? I'm bingo
Requesting
on
reinforcements.
Do you
Over.
copy?
All clear. Position under control. Out.
Enemy units on the move. Enemy units on the move. Hostiles on the ground.
Position under control. Out.
How about some help over here?
نحتاج إسعافات أولية هنا.
Outpost is being overrun. Outpost is being overrun.
Enemy hostile on the ground. Enemy troops.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy spotted.
I'm bingo on ammo. Do you copy?
All clear. Position under control. Out. Enemy.
Clear.
You'll live, buddy. Now get back.
Medic. I'm bingo on ammo. Bingo on ammo. Do you copy? Bingo on ammo. Okay.
نحتاج ذخيرة هنا.
All right, you're good to go.
قنبلة. أحد الرجال.
We've lost control of an outpost.
Enemy forces over.
Transmission ended.
Medic.
UAV online and
Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Position cleared and under control.
Thanks, Champ.
Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV offline.
Enemy infantry.
10-4.
First aid!
Hostiles on the ground.
Frag!
Lost control of an outpost. Position under control. Out.
Medic!
Online and transmitted.
Hostiles on the ground. Requesting UAV overflight. Hostiles on the ground. Enemy forces over.
Position under control.
Transmitting on this farm.
Hostiles on the ground. Requesting unmanned aerial. Do you copy? Hostiles on the ground. Requesting UAV overflight. Over.
UAV online and transmitted.
Medic!
Marketing key positions, over.
نحتاج اسعافات اوليه. احضر الاسعافات الاوليه الى هنا. القيت قنبله.
All clear. Position under control. Out.
UAV transmitting on this.
Enemy forces, enemy spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
Requesting reinforcements, over. Requesting reinforcements, over.
القيت قنبله.
UAV is no on transmission ending. Online and transmitting.
Frag grenade. Be done. Clear.
Running low on reinforcements. Outpost is being overrun.
Thank you. I owe you one. Requesting ammunition, over.
Enemy spotted.
Medic!
Medic. Clear.
Enemy spotted. جنود الأعداء. شوهدت قوات الأعداء. شوهدت قوات الأعداء. شوهدت قوات الأعداء. شوهد قناص من الأعداء.
على سرية الأعداء. هل تسمعوني؟
شوهد قناص من الأعداء وهي تحت السيطرة.
قوات الأعداء حول.
جنود الأعداء. شوهدت قوات الأعداء.
الطائرة بدون طيار تعمل وبدأت البث.
لا سيدي.
جاري البث الحي من الطائرة بدون طيار.
سرية للأعداء.
قوات الأعداء حول.
مروحية للأعداء. الأعداء تتحرك. ذخيرة مني. هل تسمعوني؟ سرية للأعداء. ظهر قارب للأعداء. ظهر قارب للأعداء. وحدات الأعداء تتحرك.
الطائرة بدون طيار تعمل وبدأت البث.
قناص من الأعداء. هل تسمعوني؟ ستنفذ ذخيرة مني. نحتاج المزيد. حول.
قوات الأعداء حول.
تم تدمير منصة الطائرات بدون طيار.
ذلك جنود الأعداء. تحركات الأعداء. هل ظهر جنود الأعداء. تسمعوني؟ وحدات الأعداء تتحرك. تم الاستيلاء على إحدى
جاري البث.
جنود الأعداء. تحركات الأعداء. هل تسمعوني؟ تحركات الأعداء. هل تسمعوني؟
نفذ وقود الطائرة بدون طيار. انتهى البث.
تم مسح جميع المناطق. الموقع تحت
جاري البث
السيطرة.
الحي من الطائرة
انتهى.
بدون طيار. تم تدمير منصة الطائرات بدون طيار.
جنود الأعداء. سريع للأعداء. تم مسح المنطقة وهي تحت السيطرة. حاضر. وحدات الأعداء تتحرك. ظهر جنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. قوات جنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. فقدنا السيطرة على إحدى النقاط. تم الاستيلاء على إحدى النقاط. شوهدت قوات الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. قوات جنود الأعداء. شوهدت قوات الأعداء. شوهدت قوات الأعداء. شوهدت قوات الأعداء. شوهدت قوات الأعداء. قوات الأعداء. تم مسح جميع جنود الأعداء. شوهدت قوات جنود الأعداء. جنود الأعداء. قوات الأعداء. ظهر جنود الأعداء. جنود ظهر جنود ظهر جنود الأعداء.
جاري البث الحي من الطائرة بدون طيار.
تم الاستيلاء على إحدى النقاط.
الطائرة بدون طيار توقفت عن العمل. الطائرة بدون طيار تعمل وبدأت البث.
فقدنا السيطرة على إحدى النقاط.
نحتاج إلى تعزيزات. هل تسمعني؟ نحتاج إلى ذخيرة.
تم مسح المنطقة وهي تحت
الطائرة
السيطرة.
بدون طيار تعمل وبدأت البث. تم تدمير منصة الطائرات بدون طيار.
ظهرت قوات الأعداء. حول.
استعدنا دعم فحص الأقمار الاستعدية.
فقدنا السيطرة على إحدى النقاط.
نطلب الذخيرة. حول.
جنود الأعداء على الأرض.
جهاز تعقب الأقمار الاصطناعية في حالة سيئة.
فقدنا السيطرة على إحدى النقاط. تمكنا من السيطرة على الأعداء. تابعوا بجهد أكبر أيها الجنود.
تم إصلاح منصة إطلاق الطائرة بدون طيار. جاري البث الحي من الطائرة بدون طيار.
grenade. Frag grenade.
أضعف الأعداء والكثير من الرجال يمنة ويسرا. هل تسمعني؟
identified. Do you copy?
Get ammo here. Grenade. Ammo here.
Hostile forces spotted. Over.
Get first aid. Here. Get first aid.
Thanks. I owe you one.
First aid. Here.
Hostile infantry troops identified. Do you copy? Over. Thanks. I owe you one. Enemy force over on it. Over.
أحضر الإسعافات الأولية.
Hostiles on the ground. Enemy units on the move.
control. Good work, men.
Frag grenade.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Position cleared and under control. Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy infantry. Enemy sniper. Enemy sniper. Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry. Enemy infantry. Enemy infantry spotted. Attack this coordinate. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry. Enemy spotted. Hit this position. Do you copy? Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
UAV online and transmitting.
Enemy troops identified. Do you copy?
UAV
Enemy
transmitting
forces,
on
over.
this mark.
We've lost control of an outpost. The enemy is in control. Work harder, soldiers. Control restored. Well done.
Medic! ألقيت قنبلة. Ammo here. نحتاج إسعافات أولية.
Good deal, thanks. Roger that.
Ammo here. Grenade. Grenade. Ammo. Frag grenade.
We're losing this battle. Start fighting or I'll find someone who can.
UAV is bingo on fuel. Transmission ending. UAV online and transmitting.
Attack this coordinate.
Medic!
Hit this position. Do you copy?
Enemy units on the move. Do you copy? Medic, 10-4.
Enemy forces spotted.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Hostile forces spotted. Over.
Enemy forces spotted. 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 Enemy forces spotted.
UAV online and transmitting.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
online and transmitting.
We've regained control. Good work, man.
Enemy units on the move.
أحضر الإسعافات الأولية إلى هنا.
Medic.
الآن للقتال. وقد تعديت. نحتاج إسعافات أولية.
UAV transmitting on Bismarck.
We're losing this battle. Go, 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 go! Enemy infantry, enemy sniper, enemy sniper, enemy infantry, enemy sniper, enemy sniper, enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV online and transmitting.
Go, 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 go! Enemy forces, enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry, 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 enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry, enemy infantry, enemy infantry, enemy infantry spotted.
UAV transmitting
Enemy
on
units on the move.
Bismarck.
Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces 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 spotted.
UAV transmitting on Bismarck.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
Roger on the supply drop. Over.
Hey, thanks. Enemy units on the move.
Attack this coordinate. We've regained control. Good work, man. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
UAV transmitting
Enemy
on
forces spotted. Position cleared and under control. Move your men to these coordinates.
Got it.
Position cleared and under control. This position. Do you copy?
Roger that.
Enemy infantry.
No,
Enemy forces. Enemy forces. Enemy infantry. Enemy infantry. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy sniper. Enemy sniper spotted.
Hostile enemy troops identified. Do you
Outpost
copy?
is being overrun.
Roger on the supply drop. Over.
Enemy units on the move.
Online and transmitting.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted.
UAV transmitting on Bismarck.
Attack this coordinate.
How about some help over here?
4. Enemy infantry forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy sniper spotted. Artillery strike denied. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV online and transmitting. Roger on the supply drop. Over.
Hostile infantry spotted. Over. Enemy forces. Over.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy snipers. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
Hey, dang. Roger that.
UAV is bingo on fuel.
All clear. Position under control. Out.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Enemy forces spotted.
Hostiles on enemy units on the move.
التدريب المتعب.
Roger on the
Enemy
supply
units
drop.
on the move. Enemy troops. Hostiles on the ground.
Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV transmitting on this mark.
Enemy forces spotted.
Thanks, champ.
Position enemy forces spotted. 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 Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy lost control of an outpost. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV transmitting on this mark. Roger on the supply drop. Over.
Enemy activity. Do you copy? Thanks, champ.
Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy forces 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 spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV online and transmitting.
Enemy infantry. We've lost control of an outpost. Attack this coordinate. We're losing this battle position. Do you copy? Someone who can. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy sniper spotted.
UAV
We're taking
online
casualties, over. We've regained control. Good work, men. Enemy forces spotted. Medic! Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV online and transmitting.
Enemy forces, enemy infantry spotted.
Hostiles on the ground.
Hit this position. Do you copy?
Roger on the supply drop. Over.
Enemy forces.
Enemy infantry spotted. Hold this map coordinate. Over. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
UAV online and transmitting.
Position cleared and under control.
Sniper! Sniper!
Enemy forces spotted.
How about some help over here?
Go! Go! Go!
Follow me! I need a medic here!
Enemy
Enemy
forces
troop!
spotted.
Medic! Medic! Hostiles on the ground!
Enemy infantry. Enemy sniper. Enemy sniper. Enemy infantry. Enemy sniper. Enemy infantry.
Medic! Medic!
UAV online.
Enemy units on the move!
Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry. Enemy infantry spotted.
Enemy units on the move!
Roger on the supply drop. Over.
Enemy infantry. Enemy sniper. Enemy forces. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy forces spotted. Enemy infantry spotted. Enemy infantry spotted.
Medic!
UAV transmitting.
Enemy units! Enemy units on the move! Medic!
Outpost is being overrun. Enemy sniper spotted. Enemy sniper spotted. UAV already airborne. Request
UAV
denied.
transmitting on this mark.
Enemy forces spotted.
Roger on the supply drop. Over.
Enemy infantry spotted. 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 You're the finest squad I've ever seen. Enemy forces spotted.
UAV online and transmitting.
Enemy forces spotted.